Okay, right. This is Sonired versus Ed, aka HaxED. Ed on the bottom, Sonired on the top. We've got a sun balance on Soniered's end versus a sort of a stall on Ed's end. Leading with Glissaw versus the Ho. The Ho looks very threatening versus this team. But if that's physically defensive Ho, then he can probably switch in there. He doesn't go for the Sacred Fire, so he could have potentially stayed in. Perhaps he was afraid of a possible Stone Edge, although that's rare and unlikely, and it wouldn't like letting itself get burned, since he doesn't appear to have, or he doesn't have anything there that can learn Heal Bell. His Durity and Origin is just letting the Glissaw get at rocks. He doesn't have any sitter that actually gets rocks up versus opposing Hoa, which is an issue on that team. Whilst this Giratina is just going down to this Glissaw, which is now revealed Toxic and Stealth Rock, and presumably that leaves Earthquake and Roost in the remaining slots. Which does make it somewhat big for Ferrothorn, which does now come in, having revealed the Toxic. But Sableye comes in to counteract that, which manages to get in for free since the switch was made. Sableye comes in and foul plays, which does a huge number to the Giratina Origin. Cripples him somewhat. He should really be trying to get the Ancient, but he lets Giratina go down as Sableye recovers there safely. In comes the Ancient, which is presumably, well, probably not his rock setter given the that he has a Groudon, but it's possible that it is. Moonblasts the Arceus normal, but there's no leftovers being revealed, so perhaps that's an E-Killer, which is a little odd looking on that team. It could be an offense, it's just a little, looks kind of stallist. Oh wait, custom game issues. Okay, apparently it's Arceus Fairy, so I'll have to remember that. But that just took a whopping 50% there, and is forced to recover here probably, but that's likely his Defogger. But in comes Ferrothorn, and we'll see if this has Fire Blast, which is unlikely. It's usually, if it's got a free slot to throw at Ferrothorn, it would be Stone Edge. But yeah, it's more likely Stone Edge, if not Wisp. Since that team, he does have Mega Sableye that just completely bones Ferrothorn anyway, so he doesn't need something like Fire Blast, as well as he's got Ho, which could be physically defensive or it could be something else. But Ferrothorn eats up that Moonblast easily, and then threatens it out with Gyro Ball, and should be fully healthy after this exchange unless the opposing Ferrothorn comes in. But he could very well go for a Spike here, and there's little that can be done about that. But Ho comes in to keep up the pressure. However, he has both physically defensive Ho and Glissaw here, and that Sacred Fire doing a measly 42%, which it eats up pretty easily. In comes Diancie back in. I think in this matchup, it's looking like it's coming down to a stalling game, which Ed's team is built to win. Soniered's aim is more to try and break the opposing team, which shows by the Defogger that's quite limited in some ways there. He's got offensive Ho, he's got Durity Origin, which, yeah, it has even less staying power than Arceus. And that Toxic's there, which will stay, and then Glissaw can roost on here, although a critical hit will end it. Due to the Life Orb and Toxic damage, it can't afford to stay in there for much longer. And it presumably is going to switch out to get Regenerator healing, which means you can fire off another Earthquake, or Toxic, but no, okay, he gets off a Roost there. You should probably switch out now though, since even a critical hit there won't be too useful, but a good chance of going down due to the combination of the recall from the attack recall from Life Orb and the Toxic, so he needs to switch out there. And Ed misplaying and just letting it happen. He should have gone for an Earthquake there, if nothing else, or a Toxic, trying to hit either the Groudon or something. A Mega Sableye comes in again versus the Ferrothorn, Gets off a foul play versus the Diancie. Using the momentum of the Diancie, he gets in Ho-Oh, which is, yeah, it's still, he's fishing for that crit, but that's his best option here. However, Ed does have his own Ho-Oh as well, which without Rocks Up is also a good answer to it if it's physically defensive, although we're not certain if it is. It could be an offensive one to try and give his team some offensive presence, but otherwise he just has nothing he can really do against opposing Ho offense other than try and stall it out of PP, but it can switch infinitely and he can't really punish it, so presumably it's something like a Choice Band Ho or Life Orb rather than physically defensive there, just because he can't even guarantee rocks versus Sableye offenses. Alright, and Sonired manages to stay healthy versus this, which will give him more opportunities again to fish for the critical hit. However, he can't do much damage to this Glissaw, and that Mega Sableye is a serious issue which he can't consistently really force out or hurt, so he's going, and he can't bring Ho into it, so he needs a critical hit now more than ever, otherwise his team cannot do a thing. He roosts there, and Glissaw goes for the roost again, but that Ho is very low health there, so presumably Earthquake there, but no rocks even, yeah, which he gets up safely, and that is probably the end of the game, pretty much just there. He goes into Diancie again to pressure it, but it can't even switch in again here, so the most it can do is spam some attacks perhaps, protects against the fake out, but it pretty much can just sit there and go down. There's nothing. This should be Ed's game since Sonired simply can't break this team, preventing the hazards from going up. He's a bit by having only the Ho to really do any damage, unless that's stuck in some sort of offensive Arceus, but I'm not sure whether that could be enough. But yeah, he has difficulty breaking Mega Sableye, which is a big issue for this team. Is going pretty quickly. We're on to turn 37 now. He's just getting more spikes up on his own side, which is not helping. Perhaps trying to force a misplay, but that's his only real opportunity. But no, Ed can pretty much play by the books now. By the book even. That Ho comes in there on that Wisp, but if Diancie had come in there, that would have been, well, no, Diancie can't even come in there due to the hazards present now. With Giratina gone, they won't go down, so Wisp there was fine to try and catch the Pharaoh. Earthquake being the best thing there, and presumably he either goes for a Roost or Earthquake here, but Ho goes down. No, he goes for the Roost. But yeah, that's effectively game over, although the E-Killer can come in and set up versus this, and the most it can do is Toxic it. It's not Lumberry, so what did he just do? That made no sense. He just Earthquaked that Glissaw. Must have been a misclick, but, or maybe he predicted a switch, but no, that Glissaw stays in and stalls it there. At +2, it doesn't do enough to out-damage the Roost, so without a critical hit there all game, Glissaw stood around and simply beaten him. Both teams were pretty nice. The flaws were smaller and more subtle. That's all there really was to it, was certain flaws in the team building sort of emanating there, which led to a 6-0 victory for Ed, but in some situations that team also does have some issues. So yeah, that's game one. Alright, and second game, two new teams, two interesting looking teams. Ed saying he accidentally brought the wrong team. Okay, never mind. Okay, sorry, that's where we were. It's an explanation of what happened. Sonia Red's brought the same team. It looks so different from the back, doesn't it? But okay, so we've got interesting teams here. We've got a sort of a balance on Ed's end and Hyper Offense on Soniered's end with the Deoxys Speed, Mega Blaziken, and the like. Lead life will be Evil Tile, one hit KOs the Lando T, which shouldn't have been staying in there. He really ought to have gone Clefty. Rocks weren't that useful on that team. But he doesn't choose to lead Deoxys Speed for some reason, which I can't really understand. In comes Arceus Rock, which is a terrible choice in Hyper Offense, and really shouldn't be there. I'm not sure why on earth he's got Arceus Rock on his Hyper Offense, but since it's a balance mon, it's the sort of mon that you use to patch up like weaknesses to E-Killer and stuff, but it leaves a lot of space for your opponent to do stuff like bring in that Mewtwo, which his team can't really switch into too well. Although in this case his team can, but well, with the right attacks, and there's a weird stall 2 with Will-O-Wisp, so bad set on Ed's end arguably, and bad team on Soniered's end with that Arceus Rock Hyper Offense. You don't need Defog on it, especially when you've got Deoxys Speed, so it just makes 0 sense. Thunderwave in the DOS. Play roughing it up. It reveals Rocky Helmet, and now Sonired should probably switch somehow, but he's got nothing that wants to take a Thunderwave there. But he can stay in and stop Cliff. He's just spamming play rough. But yeah, he wants to bring in Giratina, and Sonired needs to bring it up. Okay, it can defog, but he can just Dragon Tail here, and he's clearly got no Dragon Resists. And if in comes Palkia, then it takes a ton. In comes, well, basically everything takes a ton. And it reveals Draco Meteor, which is a not common move on it, but possible. But that just does incredible damage there to the Klefki. And if this wants to live another turn, it has to Oblivion Wing here, assuming this doesn't have Shadow Sneak, which it very well could possibly. But no, he goes Ho, taking the Focus Blast, so he must not have Oblivion Wing there to try and heal up versus the Klefki, but that somehow worked out very well for Ed. But he really doesn't need the Ho versus that team. I mean, else was the Blaziken, but the Blaziken can run Stone Edge or something to beat it anyway, or Sword Dance will do an absolute ton once rocks are up. Ho is not an issue for hyper offensive teams, as simple as that. It should be an Eco or something, which would make a bit more sense on that team. Still, there's just not much that's really offensive on his team to actually abuse the existence of the Arceus Rock there to really punch holes in him. Like, nothing much particularly obvious comes to mind, but like yeah, the Clefty is not bad there. Canon, Thunderwave there. And go for the spikes here. We'll just go to Giratina. And Deoxys Speed fully paralyzes, and now he can defog as much as he likes. Or Draco Meteor, which nothing really wants to take. Genesect resists. Oh yeah, Genesect resists Dragon, that's true. But it still will take an absolute ton from Draco Meteor. But he goes for Hex, which he reveals, which is an interesting set. But that's it's a decent set though. Well, I can't call it a bad set. Certainly, it's I've seen it used here and there, and it's not a bad choice. I don't like the stall 2 on that team, but other than that, I don't really see any obvious issues with that. In terms of this battle, it's still hard to say who's going to win. But that Giratina is an absolute pain, which only Palkia can really pressure. Obviously, doesn't have a terribly good switching for that. It's just Mewtwo and Klefki. But that bulky looking Mewtwo actually takes it, which is surprising. So yes, he's running some strange set, like maybe max HP and max speed, but no. Why is he running? Oh, well, maybe that's Scarf Palkia, which would explain it. On the switching in of Klefki, that almost guarantees that Scarf Palkia. And he Thunder Waves it, which if he doesn't have Toxic is a bad play right there. Since he basically forced it out and forced Spikes damage on shit. But maybe he predicted Mega Blaziken to come in, which, you know, would have been better if his team wasn't packing a Defogger. Assuming that's what it is, but he needs to get Spikes out with it. That's the whole point. He just doesn't have any means for like clearing it now. Heal Block is interesting there, but okay, that means he presumably doesn't have Toxic, but why is he not getting up Spikes? I'm not totally sure about that. It's just not doing any damage. That last must not be a raw resist, but why hasn't he gone for like a layer of Spikes there and then the Judgment, which we knew was coming down, and then force it out with whatever's left? I don't understand that, but E-Killer here would be pretty effective with a Genesect can come in and explode versus it, or Extreme Speed, but we don't know anything about the Arceus form yet. Something like E-Killer or Arceus Dark, maybe? Stuff like that could definitely, like, okay, Arceus Dark wouldn't, but E-Killer would. But it does depend. It might be like Arceus Water, which looks kind of possible on that team. And it would actually be kind of threatening here, barring that Palkia. But, although, depends on the move that Palkia goes into, but he can Hex here. There's no resistances, but Hex is quite a weak attack if the opponent isn't paralyzed, only 65 base power. And whilst Retinar's pretty powerful, and these Pokemon are pretty fail, and it's not resisted, it is still quite a low powered move. And Meteor is the better option versus the Palkia. And I think even more powerful than Genesect, but versus Palkia is definitely a huge difference. But no, Hex there takes it out, but it wasn't really needed now that Klefki is down, since he didn't go for any Spikes there. In comes Palkia. Now, do we get to see the Arceus form here? Nope, and we see that there's no Shadow Sneak there. In comes E-Killer. But it must be like Choice Band Genesect or something maybe then, if that's Scarf Palkia. And it is E-Killer. I've put the screen in the wrong place, I'm sorry about that. Slightly. There we go. But if it's not Life Orb here, then I think it might well sweep, but it does depend on sets. Like there could be Extreme Speed or Genesect, it could be Scarf. Just Scarf's kind of bad and it would make this bad team even worse. But yeah, you probably should have just Earthquaked with that thing instead of going into Giratina. But he did misplay a little bit here and there, but he's gone for the second SD there, 1-hit KOs. Not Life Orb, so Recoil won't kill. We don't know if this is Scarf, if it's not Scarf. Okay, Extreme Speed there, he goes for it, but I wonder if +4 Extreme Speed there would have KO'd. Okay, and we're into the third game, and we see more interesting and weird teams. I think that's Ed's familiar team that he's used quite a bit before, which has Choice Band Genesect that appears like Scarf, but it's actually Scarf Sephiroth. In comes Palkia on that Kyogre Water Spout, which does a decent amount. For 4 times resistance, it does a whopping 34%. But Sonored's team's kind of bad having 2 ground types together. It's just a horrible and pointless and dreadful, and I don't understand why on earth he would do that. But Aegislash is a good choice alongside Kyogre, since it helps with a lot of common checks and counters, but that horrid T-Wave Palkia working there, but that Hydro Pump miss. I'm not sure why he Hydro Pump there, but Kyogre ends up pressure stalled bizarrely and struggles to death there. So he takes out Palkia for the Kyogre, which I'm not sure how worth it that might have been, but once it got paralyzed, it wasn't doing very much versus this team. So there is that. But out goes the pair of those. Palkia wasn't really doing anything else beyond answering Kyogre this match. In comes Genesect for the momentum, and it is banned but Bluffing Scarf here. Happen to know, and it does a U-turn which does 10% to Aegis Slash, which is basically nothing. And in can come presumably Yveltal to force it out and threaten it. Obviously not Diancie. Zekrom doesn't like the fact that it can be scouted, but Yveltal could be something like Life Orb, which does great work here, especially since Xerneas doesn't resist Oblivion, so it really can't switch in very much. Goes for Foul Play, which drops his attack, but it doesn't make a difference, but it reveals that he's a tank one. Which means that he's not breaking past the Xerneas anytime soon. He U-turns, which is a very peculiar set. I don't like it, but in comes, I guess, Genesect with the weak-ass U-turn that doesn't do anything to that Aegis Slash, and the more he does this, the more chance that Sonired might play around it at some point. But Diancie goes for Stealth Rocks there, but Xerneas Moonblast one-hit KOs it. So in comes Genesect again, but those rocks now mean that Genesect's Aegis Slash game is a lot more effective, but Lando T comes in and intimidates, doing the earthquake, and that outspeeds it, but that might be a slow Lando, which is possible, and with the damage roll, it gets the KO there. In comes Groudon, which checks it okay, enough to force it out, and it rock polishes, which makes some sense, but it's still a terrible combination. But it was kind of like that it would be offensive Groudon, which also appreciates the pursuit of support there, but I think it just doesn't work. Going to ground is just bad. So in comes Genesect, which revenges it, and presumably back in comes the Aegis Slash. And I guess that means we're likely to see the Arceus form come in, since we lost the Yveltal to that Life Orb Groudon, which did an awfully large amount with that Stone Edge, presumably Adamant Life Orb Stone Edge. In comes Xerneas to get a powerful Moonblast off, but reveals Thunder Wave. So it is Life Orb, but yeah, it's now in extreme speed range. But that powerful boosted extreme speed is pretty brutal, especially since a critical hit there. But in comes Aegis Slash, which is attacking, and uses Rock Slide, which is an option to smack Ho, but it really seems dreadfully kind of unnecessary there. Volt switches though on the King Shield, which does nothing. Considering Bolt Strike isn't contact, if I remember correctly, you probably ought to have gone for that, since Latios doesn't really like taking it, and that Genesect is getting pounded there. But in comes Arceus, which I can set up here, apparently it's ground Arceus, according to Ed here. Which is Substitute, which is a rare set, but since it only needs Sword Stance, Earthquake, and Stone Edge, or possibly Gravity, I guess, to really function, it works out well here. And he Calm Mind rather than Breaking the Spell, which is bizarre and daft, but now he played up losers, he couldn't beat that set, so bad teams on both ends, bad team on Sonora's end. I can't really call Ed's team back, considering I keep on losing to it, but it is quirky at best, and I don't like a lot of the sets on it. But the victory to Ed, which puts Sonired up, Ed up 2-1. Alright, in game 3, and we see that Stall, which is slightly flawed, come out again, but there's no Mega Sableye on Sonored's And so it's fine for Ed. We see Dialga and Jirachi together, which is bizarre, as well as Mewtwo and Jirachi together, which is slightly less bizarre, I guess. 2 dragons, 2 steels, and 2 psychics. I don't like the synergy there. Especially with Giratina there, you've got 3 dark weaknesses, and that must be a dark resistant Arceus. So Arceus Dark or Arceus Fairy. Yeah, it's just, I don't like the amount of weaknesses being stacked there. It looks poor to me. But in comes Dialga, which is actually very nasty for like stall teams here. Flash cannons, which puts it in range of a Draco Meteor, but that means that Ferrothorn can answer it fine. Ho-Oh takes a whopping 56% there, but it can go for the rocks. However, in comes Sableye on the Thunder Wave, which is a flaw of having Thunder Wave instead of Toxic on Dialga, but Mega Sableye manages to hold it off. Okay, we see Arceus Dark. Yeah, if you figured it was either Arceus Dark or Arceus Fairy, but I think a Fairy would have been more effective in terms of actually beating Yveltal, etc., which you can hold off rather than actually beat here. But we don't seem to have any proper answer to Arceus Dark on that team. But in comes Ho, which fires off a Sacred Fire, presuming, and if that were the standard recover refresh Arceus Dark, it really wouldn't care. But it Volt switches and lets Gliscor for free, so where Arceus Dark should have been very threatening, he's just letting it go, and it Toxics. I'm not sure why he doesn't go for rocks there. I guess Giratina can come in, but you can just go for the rocks anyway. But yeah, this looks like Ed's somehow winning the game because Sonored's sets are kind of bad. Namely that Arceus Dark that's not refreshing there, and he's just let Ho-Oh just screw him over. It's really bad considering he's got Jirachi as well. His team is quite Ho-Oh weak, which is pretty poor. So it's coming in on the Saline, and since Dialga let itself get paralyzed, it can't actually beat it now. Unless it gets a Flash Cannon drop, in which case you've still got multiple things that can come into it. So in comes Arceus Dark, but he needs rocks up if he's going to actually beat that Ho-Oh, and I'm not sure his rock setter should be Dialga. He can't get out rocks now because he played around Sableye badly. Well, I guess Ed played around it kind of well. He tried to get Fulton to get rocks up on his own end, but really, without fucking around with Thunder Wave, he should have been able to at least get out rocks there. Because all he needed Dialga to do this game was to get out rocks. Since Ferrothorn rules it. But instead, he let himself get paralyzed, which just cost him his having any rocks this game. The Arceus form, I can't remember what form it was. I think it was Fairy. It was Arceus Fairy, yeah. But, actually, U-turning that could be Scarf, it could be a Wish one, but there's not been any leftovers on it, so it's presumably Scarf. Mewtwo comes in Megad, but because this is a custom game, because the formatting is a bit messed up on here. But Fire Blast, which does 60% to Sableye, giving him a chance to break it. Can Fake Out here, but that would sacrifice momentum possibly. But he goes for another Fire Blast, and then he can fire off a Psy Strike versus this Ho-Oh, but it may cost him his Mewtwo. However, he doesn't really have much else that he can do, and he can't just let it sit here on a roost all game. It's such a pain for his team, but it goes for a Psy Strike. But Arceus Fairy is able to take it, however, a Taunt here would be a huge issue. Or Calm Mind. Either would be absolutely horrific for Ed to try and deal with there. But no, he appears not to have it, so in comes Jirachi to pressure him. U-turns its Scarf, it takes the hit. And now either Judgment's coming down, which would be amazing. Oh, it does. And that shows what happens if you don't go for it properly there, but he was wary of perhaps a Fire Punch coming down, but no. Iron Head there, forcing the Jirachi to take Iron Barb's damage, and Ink can cast something else if he wants it to. But he goes for a Leech Seed there, and the Dialga can't hurt Sableye, so he's got a sort of 50-50 hit. Does he go for Rocks, or does he go for Flash Cannon, or does he go for a switch? Ho comes in, which is an interesting good choice, and due to the weird Arceus Dark set, it's not actually beating this Ho, which appears not to be what's been revealed. I think it's no, it hasn't revealed like Rouge or anything yet, so it could be choice band, but he really should have gotten the damage on it earlier when he calm minded up one, which I don't understand. So not feeling the best here, but yeah, Sacred Fire only does 48%. Oh yeah, Life Orb Recall has been revealed on it. So we can sit here, store it out of PP, force it to roost. When it's out of Sacred Fire PP, he can't even hurt Jirachi, which is amusing. But he gets that burn now. We see a recover. Ferrothorn here, which can just spike up. Refresh, so it is the correct set, but he must have misplayed then earlier. But it's able to get up spikes here. It's able to Leech Seed on it. But it is a big threat, but he has to not let it get all fucked over by like stuff like this Pharaoh. In comes Ho, which Mewtwo doesn't want to face at this sort of health. But yeah. But yeah, if this had been Calm Mind Mewtwo, that would have effectively won the game. After getting that Fire Blast critical hit on the Sableye. But nonetheless, the game state is what it is. He isn't running a set such as that, so Dialga down, and we're 4 Pokemon to Ed 6, which could again 6-0. Healing Wishes, and presumably in comes Zekrom to relieve itself, or Arceus Dark. Nope, in comes Zekrom. Let's reveal Volt Switch, and it's, well, I guess maybe it's Choice Band is the other possibility. That or he's running double Scarfers, which is unnecessary and poor. Back comes in Mewtwo. Fire Blasting there, not predicting the Hogue to come in, and now he's in a difficult situation again. Earthquake could come down here. Sacred Fire comes down. Does it burn? It does not burn, and he is now out of Sacred Fire PP, so he's now just got Flying and ground coverage. However, that's still perfectly fine for this match, and he goes for a Draco Meteor, which does nothing more here than forcing the Gliscor to roost it or get up rocks if it likes. But we'll see if this carries Ice Beam. But it does, but it chunks her a little bit, but it's not enough. And Zekrom comes in again, and he can Brave Bird here if he really wants. But in comes Sableye, which can at least fake out for some free damage. Zekrom can go for example, Draco again. Gliscor just comes in handily. He's got to fish for a critical hit on it if he wants to have any chance of breaking this team, but he has both Ferrothorn and Gliscor. So it's really unlikely that he'll manage to break through this, but he doesn't go for the critical hit there. He goes to his Arceus Dark, but it is not, well, I guess with the Sacred Fire PP stored up from Ho, he can't actually really kill it. Until Ferrothorn Leech Seeds it, that is. But he goes into Zekrom again, which doesn't work. Does it work for him? No, because Pharaoh comes in, which I thought was likely. Volts, which is for like no damage whatsoever. Here comes Arceus Dark, and spikes go up even more. I guess this Ferrothorn just wins. Leech Seed comes up. Ferrothorn effectively just winning this game here, unless Mewtwo can pull some magic, but Ho is being a perfectly fine answer to it this game. Sableye goes down, but at this point it doesn't really make a difference. In comes Palkia, which if it's Scarf or something then it could clean, although I don't think Scarf would suit this team one bit. And it isn't Scarf at least, but it takes a whopping 65%, but down goes Mewtwo. I think wasn't necessary. Zekrom goes and dies, which is fine, and we'll see if HaxED can survive here. She could try and last one on him, but yeah, Ferrothorn will just come in and leech seed it, so on and so forth, and it should be Ed's game, I think, but it's hard to really say. I think Sonired could still pull it if he really tries. I'm not sure, because that team doesn't really have a proper answer to it other than HaxED's Fairy, which I just realised I totally forgot about, but at 2 Calm Minds, that's actually enough that it could maybe start beginning to taking it on, but I think with the least damage on top of that, he's going to have to go. Toxic is just a bizarre set. That's a fucking ORAS Uber set. But no, he needs to go for the refresh there. Otherwise, the Toxic and Leech Seed damage combined will just beat him on its own. But then he makes a weird play and goes out to that. But I think, does Brave Bird KO here perhaps? But no, he should have just kept on spamming Judgment, I'm sure. Which does just an awful, dreadful amount of damage to this. He goes for a recover, but he should have refreshed when he had the chance, and great. Sorry, my graphics are deciding to crash at the end, but Hoa's Brave Bird does 60% and it dies. And that means that Sonired loses 1-3 with Ed coming out victorious. Good game, boys.